You could look into my eyes. Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight. And if you say run, I'll run with you. And if you say hide, we'll hide. Because my love for you would break my heart in two. If you should fall into my arms and tremble like a flower. Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight. Got your mother in the world. She's not sure if you're a boy or a girl. Hey babe, your hair's alright. Hey babe, let's go out tonight. You like me and I like it all. We like dancing and we look divine. You love bands when they play it hard. You want more and you want it fast. Say I'm wrong, exactly, baby. Put them on. Rebel, rebel, put on your dress. Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess. Rebel, rebel,
Okay. Can't you? Okay.
hot tramp, I love you so. Don't you? Got your mother in our world, but she's not sure if you're a boy or a girl. Hey babe, your hair's alright. Hey babe, let's stay out tonight. You like me and I like it all. We like dancing and we look divine. You love bands when they play it hard. You want more and you want it fast. They put you down, they say I'm wrong. You jacket thing, you put them on. Rebel, rebel, you torn your dress. Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess. Rebel, rebel, how could they know? Hot tramp, I love you so. Rebel, rebel, put on your dress. you so. Don't you dress, your face is a mess. You can't get enough, but enough ain't the test.
All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and kick off our 11 o'clock. We're just going to keep the rock star train rolling here. So wow, I feel lit up after that one. Welcome to the 11 o'clock session, Jumpstart Your Nonprofit. This session is this is part of our idea and pre-product track presented by Fidelity Bank. So if you don't mind, put your hands together for Katie Grover with Fidelity.
Hi, friends. How are we? Good. Great. Quickly, thank you again for being here, and I'm excited about this. But at Fidelity, we know that countless victories lie ahead because of the fire within us. This isn't about having a single vision for our hometown. It's about unique individuals having the courage and stamina to win, wake up, and start again. Let's reimagine, reinvent, reinvest, because the city that we want to become is always on the other side of start. I'm super excited to introduce Marquetta. She is phenomenal. You are going to learn so much from her. A little bit about her. Marquetta is the founder and executive director of Destination Innovation, Inc. She is a community educator that brings her passion for work with youth and her creative energy to the table as a facilitator. For years, she has dedicated herself to ensuring that young people are equipped with the tools for a better future. She was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, and graduated with a degree in communications from Wichita State University. Her persistence in reaching her educational goals equipped her to be a mentor for high school youth in Wichita, including her own children, Devin, who attended WSU, and Amani, am I saying that right? Fantastic, yes. Who is a junior at Prairie View A&M University in Texas. Marquetta's passion for youth development is rooted in her conviction that youth are the change makers we need for the transformation of our communities, both today and in the future. In 2015, she founded Destination Innovation, Inc. to expose young people to a variety of career options, encouraging them to create their own future. The camp also helps youth explore strategies for entrepreneurship and civic engagement, grounding their professional development in a larger vision for a whole and healthy community. Thank you for being here, Marquetta. Please help me welcome her.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you guys for having me. I am so kind of calm that the crowd got a little bit thinner. I was so nervous, and I'm like, they got me coming up after David. And a fun fact, so I can say David, because we used to be part of a health equity cohort together before he became who he is now. So I knew him when he was still running his rural community, and now he's the lieutenant governor. And so it's like great to see both of us grow, some larger than others, but it's great to see the growth that he's had. So again, my name is Marquetta Atkins. I am the executive director and founder of Destination Innovation, Inc. Who we are. Watch the clicker doesn't work. Okay. Destination Innovation, Inc. Our mission is to bring in the future leaders into the powerful positions now. So we're firm believers that you do not have to wait till you grow up. And typically when you go and ask a kid, what do you want to be when they grow up? They'll say things like things that they were taught: a teacher, a doctor, a veterinarian. And when you think about those things, those are all really, really, really good things to be. But the world is vast and it's big, and there's so many things that young people can be. So what we wanted to do at Destination Innovation is burst the bubble on what the possibilities are for youth. And so I have this thing of saying our youth are the best investment we can make that yields the best returns. So it was really important to me when that 17-year-old stood up and say, how do you keep me here? Because that's the first question that we ask at Destination Innovation. Is Wichita a place that you think you can grow in? Is Wichita a place you think you can thrive in? Do you feel like you're invested in Wichita? Could you build here? We asked that the first day of camp, and typically everybody in the room does not raise their hand. Everybody says that they want to leave. So that's the problem identified. We spend the rest of the summer exposing them to parts of Wichita that they didn't know exist, to leadership in Wichita that they would not have accessibility to. And then we ask the question again at the end of camp, is Wichita a place that you can build, that you can grow in and be invested in? And typically we get a raise of hands because they've been introduced to a Wichita that they did not know. Think about it. The only time, usually in the past, the only time young people went downtown is during Riverfest. And Riverfest is contained. So when you are an East Sider or a West Sider, where do you not go? You don't go to the West Side, or you don't go to the East Side. And then we have those in-between towns that get no visibility at all. And so I have this saying that Wichita is beautiful in all its parts. And it's time for us to show our youth that they belong here. In April 1st, I don't know where I'm supposed to be. April 1st, 2021, I started off with Camp Destination Innovation, and I was working still. So just like every entrepreneur, you have your working job that's paying the bills, and then you have your dream that you're going after that you do on the side. So I have been doing Destination Innovation for about 5 years, and then I had a working job, and at that job, I created other programs that were dedicated to you. So April 1st, 2021, we took all those programs and merged it under Destination Innovation, Inc. And we became a hub of youth leadership and development. So we have, of course, Camp Destination Innovation, which is my baby, which is teaches kids entrepreneurship with the emphasis on STEM. We have Root the Power, and Root the Power takes high school students and college students, and they're getting young people energized about their civic engagement and the power of their vote. So you might not have the power of your vote just yet because you're underage, but you do have the power of your voice. And if you look throughout history, when you think about great changes that have happened in history, youth have always been the catalyst to it. When you think civil rights movement, those were high schoolers. When you think Tiananmen Square, those were 18, 19-year-old college students. So great changes happen with youth. So in our space, we always say you will be seen and heard. We don't do that not seen and heard in our space. We also have Progeny. And Progeny are youth touched by the juvenile justice system that were or passionate about juvenile justice reform, that we're teaching policy, advocacy, leadership, and how to change policy in the way it impacts them. Our goal at Destination Innovation, Inc. is to put young people into powerful positions now. They need to have seats at the table. So we sit up here and we have all these conversations about what can we do with youth? What can we do with youth? And we're planning the future without having the future at the table. And we get it wrong every single time. So what we want to do is we want to get young people like you in powerful decision-making tables. And we want you guys to grow up with the mindset that you do not need an invitation to those tables. You belong there. And not only do you belong there, you know how to get to them. And that's what we're doing at DI. It's important to note, I do want to note that we have a kid from Progeny that was incarcerated from the time that he was 14 to 18, who has a governor's appointed seat right now at 22 with the Kansas Advisory Group for Juvenile Justice and Delinquency. He's sitting at a table where he changes policy. That's what we want to do. So when we're talking about starting your nonprofit, right? The first question I will always ask people, what is your why? Why do you want to start a nonprofit? There are over 400 nonprofits in Wichita, Kansas. 400. So when you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, you got to ask yourself, is there a need? And is that need already being met by another nonprofit? Would it be smart for you to join a nonprofit and see what you can do to build with them? Or do you really need to start your own? If you're hitting a niche that's going unanswered, then yes, start your nonprofit. If there's other nonprofits out there doing it, I would also tell you to go and see how you can partner with them, work with them, or volunteer with them so you can uplift that work. It's too often that we're competing for the same funds. And what I want Wichita to understand is when we do collaborations, we become stronger. When we work together as nonprofits, we can get more funding and we can reach more young people. I already answered that question. And is it community centered? This is the biggest, most important thing. If you're going to nonprofit work to get rich, don't do it. Make sure there's validity in the reason why you're going out there to do the work. Now, understand, I do want people to get rid of the mindset in a nonprofit that you have to live in poverty in order to do community work. That's wrong. This work is hard. It's a grind, specifically working with young people or underserved communities. You are working 24/7. You should be invested in. You shouldn't have to live in disparity to do community work. So I want to get rid of that mindset. And trust me, starting a nonprofit is just like starting a business. We just have more rules and more governance. What is your core purpose? Oh, I went a little bit too far. Okay. What is your core purpose? It's really important for you to know the purpose of why you're doing this work. And then really, when we're talking about strategic partnerships or an alliance, why not try a fiscal sponsorship first? It can be costly to start a nonprofit, but when you get a fiscal sponsorship, is a nonprofit organization that provides legal and financial framework for a person that wants to do civic or some kind of charitable initiative. And so I started out in a fiscal sponsorship. So ETE, who was just in the room, who is now Nexus, was my fiscal sponsor for 3 years. And that's how I got into this entrepreneurship world. Plus, in college, I used to work for the Center for Entrepreneurship. But when being at ETE, they handled all my financial stuff. They connected me. They did all my taxes. And all I had to do was go tell them when I needed a check. It was the best fit for me because I was not financially prepared to start my own 501c3. And I also had an existing job. So it saved me a lot of money to do it that way. And it also allowed me to get donations and be reputable and be safe for donors that wanted to give to our organization. So when you have a big organization behind you, people are more apt to trust you with their money. Now, there's some pros and cons about having a fiscal sponsorship. Again, like I just said it facilitates a collaboration, allows people to trust you. It allows you to be fiscally responsible. There's all these positive things that go into having a fiscal sponsorship. There's also some bad things that can happen. You're at the total mercy of your fiscal sponsor. I have seen, this did not happen to me, thank goodness I had a good fiscal sponsor, but I have seen some organizations that had a fiscal sponsorship that when that company or that organization was suffering, they dipped into the money of the people that were fiscally sponsoring. It's so important that you know every single check that's coming your way. It is so important that you have them designate those funds. This is specifically for this program, because if you don't, technically that money can get taken from you. That's the sad part of a fiscal sponsorship. You have to be with an organization that you trust, that is reputable. There's also administration fees that comes with having a fiscal sponsorship. Some people did it for free, like ETE did for me, and some people charge an administration fee, as they should, because they're doing that back work for you, and that can get costly. Liability falls on the sponsor. So if you as a charitable organization is not doing a good job, if you are not mishandling your funds, that organization takes responsibility for all of the mistakes that you made, and that can make for a bad energy and a bad partnership and a bad disconnect. So you as an organization have to be careful about how you treat your fiscal sponsor as well. But I would strongly recommend, before people deep dive into getting a 501c3, to go through a fiscal sponsor. That way you learn the ropes before you get out there on your own. And the beautiful thing about my fiscal sponsorship with ETE, when they were shifting over to Nexus, they were changing their goals. They supported me and helped me get my 501c3. They still support me to this day in this work. Our kids were just in their, were actually in their competition that they did over COVID, and they helped with the whole thing. So we are still a part of that work and active in the entrepreneurship community. So just say you decipher to get your 501c3. What do you need to start it? And all these things are Googleable, so I don't want to go through the whole list. But the one thing is choose your mission. Again, stay grounded in your why. And I will say that throughout this whole talk. You have to stay grounded in your why. If you don't know your why, you lose sight of your goals. You also need to go to, I put www.kansas.gov. Choose your name and do a name search. You can't do the same name as anybody else. And you don't want to get sued because you can't get sued if you use somebody else's name. So be smart about that. Choose your registered agent. Who's going to take responsibility? Who's the founder of your organization? And then this is one of the most important things to me. Select your board. Your board is a make or break in a nonprofit. And usually when people start a nonprofit, they pick their friends. Like, we're going to get 4 or 5 people so we can get our designated 501c3. I don't want that much governance over my nonprofit. I don't want people telling me what to do. And so they'll go pick their friends, but their friends don't show up to board meetings. You're growing and you don't have any governance. They're not giving you good advice. It doesn't work that way. Your board is going to help you elevate to the next level. So do not choose your friends, or if you're choosing friends, choose friends that are in the professions that will help uplift your nonprofit. You got to create your bylaws and your conflict of interest policy. You got to get your articles of incorporation. All of these things going to get in your 501c, your EIN, and then you apply for your 501c3. And there's 2 ways to apply for a 501c3. So you can do the 1023 easy form if you don't anticipate making over $50,000 a year, which is how I started. But if you already come in with a lot of money, you got to go above. So again, I talked about choosing your board. This is really, really important to choose your board. So you can have an advisory board, which is what I have. And so I run my organization. My board is there for advisement. They help me guide along. We can get the cooperative governance board, and that's good for nonprofits that don't have a CEO or president. So you're thinking about those huge kind of nonprofits. And then you get the policy board model. So that's secondary to the CEO. And they work together to move the nonprofit forward, and they don't have little to no involvement in the nonprofit. I kind of got a hybrid. So my board does policy work with me, and they also are an advisory board. So these are tips to building a strong board. My board, when we sat down and we were developing our board, in my mind, I needed 2 strong connectors. And when I say connectors, people that are connected to community, people that are connected to money. You want somebody that understands marketing because they can help you develop your brand. You want a financial expert on your board. I actually have 3 accountants, not on my board, but I have an accountant that works on staff, an accountant that we contract with, and an accountant on my board. It was so important to me to do it this way, and the reason why is because I wanted to grow. So I was thinking in an entrepreneurship mindset. And you can have, and I've known nonprofits that made a lot of money, and guess what they started to do? Spend the money. And not just spending the money on the nonprofit, but on themselves. I wanted to have a board that was strong enough to have that kind of governance. Personally, I have integrity. I would never do anything like that. But when your name is on an account that has more than 6 figures in it, and you're still struggling, you never know what the possibilities are. So I wanted to have a board that was strong enough to make sure that we had governance around it, and for my funders to know that I'm legit. Human resources. I didn't have this to start off with, but as our organization grew, it was time to get human resources in there so we know how to handle our employees, to protect them, to protect ourselves, and to protect the youth that we serve. You want directly impacted. So you need somebody on your board that's a representative of the very thing that you guys are going after. I work in entrepreneurship, I work with social justice, and I work around voting. I have those 3 things on my board: Kansas Appleseed, entrepreneurs, and people that work around voting are on my board. Again, entrepreneurs, because that's something that we do. And again, for any board, you want entrepreneurs because they are connectors too. And then someone skilled in nonprofit focus of interest, which I just said. You need a fundraiser on your board. When you're building programming and they think that the staff is supposed to do that fundraising and all that kind of stuff, when you have to build programs, when you have to work with young people, when you have to be out there in the community, actually putting together a fundraiser can be stressful. I still haven't got to the point where I put together like one of those big fundraisers yet, but I do not want to do, God forgive me, rubber chicken dinners. I have no desire to do rubber chicken dinners. I have no desire to give awards to people. And this is no shade, but I have no desire to give awards to people in the hope that they're going to donate to me. I want to be authentic in the way that we do our fundraising. So I want to think of something innovative and creative that is youth-centric, community-centric, and uplifts the work that we do without giving you a piece of chicken and giving away awards. I want to do bigger than that. So branding your nonprofit, which is super, super important. And I'm doing this with the help of some of our programs. So right here, you're looking at Root the Power. Branding is how the public perceives you, how they're going to look at you. Branding is super, super important because it increases engagement. It has social impact. You get your public support. So my goal was to have people in rooms speaking my name without me being in it. To have people talking about my nonprofit without me having to stand up and sell it to you. That is the driver for somebody to repost your work that you're doing on social media without having to be prompted to. So branding is super, super important to move your nonprofit. I'm a worker bee. So I noticed that I was doing the work, and not promoting the work adequately enough. I'm an impact person versus optics person. And also with my nonprofit, because I work with marginalized youth, one of the things I'm really, really strict about is that we are not a photo op. So if donors or people are coming into our space just to get a picture to say, hey, I talked to these kids, I won't let you do it. You have to have some kind of investment in the work that we're doing. You have to have some kind of, and it doesn't have to be monetary. You have to have some kind of investment in our community. You have to have some kind of investment in uplifting these young people. I've literally had people come and ask, can I come sit with you guys? Because we're about to do this big thing and it would look good. I've had people ask me that before. No, you can't do that. Lastly, when you're thinking about building your nonprofit, you have to deliver. Anytime somebody puts the ball in your court, you have to make sure that you go above and beyond and hit that ball out of the park. Because one bad experience, swear to God, will carry 1,000 times over, no matter how much good you put out into the atmosphere. So every time somebody passes you the ball, you have to make sure that you're doing your best to knock it out the park. You have to deliver your outcomes. And so I'm always proud to say we deliver in all of our nonprofits. I think at Camp DI, just this summer, our 14-year-old trade show winner was on the stage delivering her business for 1 million cups. From that, she did so well that she was featured in Be Local magazine last month. I already spoke to one of our kids that is sitting on a governor's appointed position. One of our other youth leaders in Progeny just won a $57,000 grant to do a documentary on the story of Kansas throwaways where kids were put into the foster care system and shifted over into the prison system. He's never encountered anything like that in his life. We've had young people featured on Essence magazine for the work that they're doing. Our young people sit on national boards. We have a young person, and I don't know if you guys, I'll throw his name out here, Nick Flores, who was a part of YEC and Camp DI. He bought his first investment property when he was 19 years old. He reached out to me and see if I would connect him to people that teach him about real estate, commercial real estate. He now works for Gary O'Borney, who is one of the mentors, one of my mentors, and one of the mentors in the camp. So he works at Occidental. He's on his third investment property. He's just 20 years old. These are the outcomes that we're doing with the young people that says we deliver. And not only do we deliver, we knock it out the park. And so I always like to toss in the reality of starting a nonprofit. And I put TLC up here, and you guys want to know why. TLC is one of my favorite music groups. But they were winning awards. They were doing videos. They were doing concerts. They were broke. Just like an entrepreneur, just like a nonprofit, a person that started a nonprofit, you will be out there standing on stages, winning awards, getting attention for your work, and you can be broke. I don't want people to be disillusioned that you're going to go out here and instantly make money. It does not work like that. There is a grind before the shine. And most of the time, people don't pay you attention until other people are paying you attention. So most people do not see that grind that you go through. I've been at this work for almost 10 years. I think I just started getting attention, like real attention, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I did most of this work unpaid for the first 4 or 5 years that I did this work. I'm just now getting a salary, an actual salary in 2017. When I first put in my first check in the bank for my 501c3, it was a $5,000 check. I was so proud of myself. Last week, we have deposited over $200,000 into our account, and we are on track to be a $500,000 or gross, or have $500,000 in funding before the end of November. And so when you're thinking about how do you scale, how do you lift up, choose a good board, deliver on your work. Be true to who you say you are. Integrity is everything. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have people talk about you or that you're not going to make somebody mad at some point. But for the one person you make mad, you need to have 100 or so people talking good about you, because that's where integrity comes in. So I went from last year being a party of one and a half, a part-time person, to now having a staff of 9. We also have 29 youth leaders officially on payroll right now. Again, I always say our youth are the best investment we can make. And I mean that. When we ask our young people to show up, we usually asking them for their time for free. Everything that I do is young people being invested in. If we're going to teach entrepreneurship, we can't teach entrepreneurship with young people not realizing you can get paid to do this work. So we have trade shows. We have the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge in the spring. And then COVID hit, and I was so depressed. Like, what am I going to do? My nonprofit is going to fail, just like everybody else. We were scared. So you have to have power in the pivot. So when COVID hit, we launched the Kansas Virtual Entrepreneurship Youth Challenge. We had over 158 kids across the state of Kansas compete in a competition because, number one, we wanted to take them off take their minds off the fact that they were being pulled out of school. We wanted to take them off the stress that this scary thing was happening. And we wanted to show young people whose parents were losing their jobs that you can bring money in your house too. Top prize was over $1,000. We had kindergartners through seniors pitching. Our littles in that competition was my favorite. You guys, you can tell when we in the TikTok generation, because if you would have asked me at 8 years old to get on a camera and sell a business, I would have been like, right now as a grown woman, blah, 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 blah. These little kids were pitching out of this world and were worth every penny. So when David was talking about we need to invest in our youth and we need to be more attractive to our youth, we have so much talent in Wichita, it is ridiculous. In Kansas, it's ridiculous. We have to create platforms for these young people to stand on so that we can see our talent. Because trust me, if we're not looking, those other cities are. They are. So going back to this, going to a staff of 9, establishing a healthy culture in your organization. So your team needs to be on board with your core values, and you need to say that every single day. These are our core values, to remind them. They need to have a clear understanding of the mission so they don't detour, and they need to share that vision of your mission. That's the big difference of people showing up to work and clocking in versus really, really going forward with the mission and believing in what you guys are doing. Leadership defines culture. So I have this saying that the fish stinks from the head. If there is chaos in your organization, if there's discontent in your organization, it's because the leadership is chaotic. It's because you're not setting the tone for how your team should be. It is so important that you have a culture of positivity, of good energy in your space. I always say we lean into discomfort. We don't lean into disrespect. There's a huge difference between being uncomfortable and having uncomfortable conversations versus disrespect. And when you're doing this kind of hard work, community work, it is hard. I encounter hard stories every single day. I see things that are going on in our community that are abysmal. That's hard. And having that on your spirit is hard every single day. Where it should not be hard is where you work. You should have peace in your office when you're dealing with chaos every single day. So we talk about starting a nonprofit, building a nonprofit. So how do you scale your nonprofit? Like I said, I went from a $5,000 check to be on track to make $500,000. And my nonprofit, again, my merger with my nonprofit happened April 1st, 2021. So I'm 6 months in on a merger of programs, and we are on track to hit $500,000 within that 6 months. Do you have the capacity to grow? And this is where we're at right now. We're at scaling. So do you have the capacity to grow your organization? Do you have the right software and tools? They matter. I had a chance meeting on Sunday to a meeting that I went to, and I met this young woman that's not from Wichita, but what she does is she works with the government to give away the laptops that they usually trash after every year. She liked me so much, she says, have you ever heard of this program? I'm like, no. She said, I'm the person that runs it. So she wants me to sign up so that I can get free laptops for my organization. You know, to a nonprofit, that's like, oh my God, she saved me so much money. Are your websites up to date? When people go to your websites, you should not have broken links. You should not have old information on there. You should let people know what's going on in your organization. Do you have the budget and funding to scale out? This is the scary part. So you're getting money coming in really, really fast. Sometimes growth can be so fast, just like David said, you can fail because you're not ready for it. Sometimes growth can happen where your programs are growing, but you don't have the funding to sustain them. You can fail. So making sure that you have a good budget plan in place will help that. Having people in the right place. So what we're doing right now is we're planning for the future of Destination Innovation, Inc. We're creating jobs that we want to have, things that we would love to see in the organization, and we're creating job descriptions for them right now. Do we have the capacity or the money to hire these people just yet? No. But when it happens, we will be prepared. So you have to visualize. We usually have a 3-year plan in place, and what we call a 3-year change. These are the things that we want to hit. These are the goals that we want to meet. These are the targets. This is where we want to be in 3 years. So if you're just planning in 2020, or 2021, who you want to be for 2022, you're behind time. So building a successful nonprofit can be an overnight success for some people if they have the right backing, or it could take time. Like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years. It took time. And when you think about branding, the meetings, all the things that you have to do to go into a successful nonprofit, you have to be willing to give 100% of yourself. So I wanted to give a couple of resources before we start to wrap this up. These are the people that I work with. Nonprofit Go, Vicki Klein, she is a godsend. Vicki does our accounting. Vicki helps us write grants, and she takes it off of my hands because I used to have to be the person that developed program, the person that raised the money, the person that works with the young people, the person that did the branding. I was all of that. Foreman Law, David is my attorney. David started off with me when I first started. He didn't charge me anything. I was so proud to write my first check to them because they had invested in me for 4 years straight without charging me a dime. So when it got to the point where I can write my first check, I did it with pride and continue to do it with pride. Kansas Nonprofit Chamber, Cindy Miles. She's another great resource for answers if you want to learn how to start your nonprofit. So once again, my name is Marquetta Atkins, and I am, again, happy to be a part of Startup Wichita. This is my community that I started in, and they support my kids so much. So I'm proud to come back out and support. So if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Let's give a round of applause for Marquetta. I have a mic that I can carry around for questions. Who's first?
I'm curious from a board perspective. So I've sat on quite a few boards, and, you know, in some cases you walk in and there's a lot of like processes, you kind of know what your role is already. In some cases you don't.
Right.
So what would your advice be? You know, maybe not someone that wants to start a nonprofit, but enjoys working with nonprofits as a board member. What would your advice be if you're in that kind of situation? Like, what can we do as board members to go to that organization and say, like, I want to do something with my hands, but we need some clarity here. How can we help guide that organization to make that happen?
So that's a really good question. And the biggest thing as a board, you have to realize that your nonprofit is looking for that kind of answers too from the board. So they need the board to be able to drive the work without them having to tell the board what to do. So thinking about the resources like board education, you know, strategic planning with your board. When you get on a board and you notice things are missing, like, you guys, we don't have governance. Like, we don't even know what time we're supposed to be meeting at the same time, what time we need to meet. I don't know what my role is. How can I help you impact your nonprofit? I think they're missing branding. They need help with marketing. They need help with financials. They need help connecting. I always tell my board, all you have to do is open the door for me. You let me walk through it, I'm going to knock it out the park. But I need somebody to help open those doors that I can't get into yet. So I would sit down and have a discussion with the nonprofit leadership team and ask them, what can I do to help you? And what can I do to get the governance so that we have this as a part of the board? So when you walk into that space, notice what's missing. Talk to the board about it and make sure you guys can come with documentation to follow that says, this is a policy that we follow on this board. Don't go in there and just sit and then leave. Don't be a board that just shows up for the meetings and then leave. You really make sure that the board that you're choosing to be a part of or the organization is something that you're passionate about, because passion moves the work. So that's how I would answer that question. Really communicate with that team, communicate with your board. When you see gaps, fill them or call them out.
While we're waiting for another question, I want to make sure that online you can post a comment, or in YouTube or Facebook, we'll see those. If you have a question, we can ask for you. But while that's happening, what do you see as the primary difference between founding a for-profit business versus a nonprofit from the founder kind of makeup or the kind of person themselves? What draws someone to nonprofit that more so than for-profit?
Nonprofit world to me, because you can be a founder of a for-profit and have a commitment to community, but you want to make money. Like, you want to make money. You want to be invested in. You want to be able to see your labor come back into your bank account as a person that owns a for-profit. And so the mindset, I had a person that owned a business tell me, I do not see how people can do nonprofit work. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. You're doing all the work, you're doing all the building, but that money does not belong to you. It belongs to the community. So I can do all of this work, found all these programs, and if the board decides that I'm not fit to do it, they can take me and remove me for something that I created. There is more responsibility with a nonprofit, meaning I can go to jail if I mishandle the funds. Now, you can do that in a for-profit too, but you have to be a big enough organization for that to happen. But for a nonprofit, I have more rules that I have to follow. As a for-profit, you don't have to disclose how much money you're making. You really don't. As a nonprofit, I have to be transparent and let people know every cent that I'm making. And not only that, where is that money coming from? How are you spending it? So in order to be a part of a nonprofit, to me, a nonprofit founder, you have to have this deep-seated commitment to community, or the goal that you want to achieve in community. And you have to be a big-time humanitarian, because I'm telling you, I have given out $1,000 checks and had $20 in my pocket. And you have to wrestle with that kind of stuff. Not anymore, but in the beginning, it was a struggle. So if you're in it to make money, if you think, like, I can say I have $500,000 in my account. As a for-profit, I'd be like, I'm rolling, I'm ready to go. As a nonprofit, that's money I'm not touching. It's going right back into my nonprofit. So
as a last question, what can our Wichita community do to help you further your nonprofit's mission?
Invest in youth. I mean, I can't say it more clearer. Like I said, when the young man stood up and he said, here I am, I like the community, I like what we have here, it's a good ecosystem, but there's a draw to pull me away and it's attractive. What are we doing to create a better Wichita for the future? Wichita, almost, and I love Wichita, I'm born and raised, but sometimes we have a slow to move mentality. And that is frustrating for this new generation. It was frustrating for my generation. I believe in the city so much. That's the reason why I stay. But I've been recruited 1,000 different times by paying way more money by different cities. But I am committed to making sure that our young people realize that this is a place that you can be successful in. I do not want Wichita to make a liar out of me. I do not want Wichita to make a liar out of me. So when you see young people like Camden standing up and saying, what can I do? Uplift him, connect him, make sure that he knows what the accessibility is. When you see young people like this coming to events like this, engage them, talk to them, ask them what their interests are. Ask them what kind of Wichita they want to see. What would make this better and healthier for you? These are the kind of conversations we're having at DI. We're literally going to have a conversation with the Kansas Health Foundation about what do young people need to feel successful in this city. to feel safe in this city. So my thing is, how can you guys help me? Invest in our young people, make them realize that they can grow here, make them feel like Wichita belongs to them. This is their city too. And stop leaving them out of the conversations.
No, thank you, Marquetta. Let's give a round of applause for her one final time. Got some Reverie coffee for you to take home those late nights. All right, so we are have at lunch. So we do not have any sessions. We do have our daily Groover Labs tour, I believe, right now. And then our next session will be Greg Giefer talking about securing your first investment check. So how do I go from not having a dollar in the bank to getting that first check as an investment? Speaking from immense experience, one of the best fundraisers in Wichita. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you return, invite all your friends, but we are adjourned until 1. Thank you.